And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm just doing good. I'm just pumped for that game on Thursday. Just beat the crap out of him and freaking win on Thursday. I swear I'm gonna go nuts and if I was attending that game in Boston, I would probably be drinking quite a bit before and after the game. Actually, maybe more after the game because I don't want to go into the stadium drunk because I don't think I'd be able to get in if I'm too drunk. But I think the most of the bulk of the drinking would be after the game if I was there. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dan. I feel like a lot of people, all the hockey people at least, are psyched. And even people that aren't fans of hockey are getting into it in the patriotic sense of it. It's been pretty interesting to see this Four Nations thing kind of get, um, dipping its toe in the whole political spectrum because, as if you don't know what we're talking about, the Four Nations face-off is the thing going on right now. The NHL is pushing during this about 2-week break during the NHL season, where they had the Four Nations, being Finland, Sweden, Canada, and the United States, playing in a best of tournament basically to see who wins. And right now, the final two are the United States and Canada. As you can see on the screen there, they already played once, and the U.S. won 3-1 up in Montreal. But like you were saying, Dan, it was just an absolutely phenomenal game where the United States and Canada dropped the gloves 3 times in the first 9 seconds of the game. All the top line guys going at it. It was an awesome sight to behold. And like I said, it's kind of become political a little bit because the United States was kind of playing the bad guys in Canada because, of all the stuff with the tariffs and stuff going on with President Trump and all the stuff that apparently Canadians are a little cranky about. The United States took it to them in their own house. Now they're saying that I heard the United States general manager, former NHL player Bill Guerin, come out and say that they want President Trump to be at the game on Thursday night. It's going to be in Boston for the final. And President Trump's, presence has been requested. I haven't heard if he's actually going to attend yet, but if he, with everything going on right now and how hostile it was of a crowd towards the United States on Saturday night in Montreal, I don't think it's going to be nearly that towards Canada in Boston. I don't think they're going to get booed out like the U.S. did because, frankly, we don't care about them as much as they care about us. But, Dan, what do you think? I mean, President Trump being there too tomorrow night, that could be quite the spectacle going on, especially if the U.S. wins.
Yeah, that is just gonna making the game extra momentous. Just that the fact that the president wants to attend, you know that's gonna be it's extra big if the president's gonna show up there for that an event that big. So it's just gonna be an intense game, and I can't wait to see it. I'm gonna be pumped. I'm just gonna be pumped to watch that game. I'll be watching that game in my living room, probably maybe drinking a couple of beers and solidarity with everyone attending in Boston. Because believe me, I'm sure there'll be plenty of booze consumed in Boston. I would expect long bathroom lines over there. Because believe me, I expect a very raucous enthusiasm over there in that crowd in Boston on Thursday. I can tell you that. That's what I expect.
Yeah, that crowd is going to be electric, no doubt about it. Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily going to be as negative towards the Canadians, but just jazzed up, USA, everybody's going to be going nuts. That's exactly the type of thing that is going to be awesome to see. I think it would just, like you said, I think it would just add to everything if the president's there too. And, to see the U.S. win.
Yeah, and I swear that they should play as soon as the U.S. when the U.S. takes the ice, they should be blaring "America, fuck yeah" as soon as they take the ice. As see it. That's how momentous that game is. They need that, and I would tell you, I'm if we win this, I might be going outside with an air horn if we win this. So,
Yeah, it's done a good job. You got to give it to the NHL too, because to be honest, coming into this, I kind of viewed this as more of an annoyance than anything. I mean, look, I always get behind international hockey. I always love watching, or international sports in general. I always love watching the World Juniors and root for the U.S. I always, obviously the Olympics and stuff along those lines and everything. Any kind of World Cup, you always get behind the, you know, Team USA. But as much as I always do enjoy that, look, I'm a Rangers fan, and the Rangers have been on kind of a roll lately. I really didn't, or at least wasn't looking forward to having this season come to a 2-week pause again. But hey, in hindsight, I got to give it to the NHL, man. This has been a fun tournament, even though it's only had 4, countries in it too. It's still been pretty, well represented, and a lot of people. It's been getting good ratings here in the United States as well, and I think people have really gotten into it. It's really tapped into that patriotic bone we all have.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just pumped to watch that. I'll be there sitting there, maybe having a couple of beers, and I'll have Mr. Malunigan sitting next to me. Probably he'll be barking when I go nuts, because that's what Mr. Malunigan does when he sees me going nuts during the game. He feeds off of that, and he'll just start barking.
That's right. So hopefully you'll be going crazy, and Mr. Malunigan's be going crazy, and the United States will be getting another victory tomorrow night to seal the deal. But in preparation for that, though, Dan, I figure we're at the hockey right now. Let's stick with it. One game left in the Four Nations. Obviously, the U.S. won the last one. U.S. Canada tomorrow night, and then after that, we return back to your regularly scheduled programming. It's back to NHL regular season games. The Rangers pick up again this Saturday night, and it's going to be it's really going to be interesting for the Rangers too, because there's a lot of things that can happen too. Let's not forget the NHL trade deadline still hasn't passed yet. So we could still be getting trades. That there isn't any kind of roster freeze or anything going on right now. So there still could be roster management and movement and everything. And as a matter of fact, the Rangers held a intense 50-minute practice today at the behest of Peter Laviolette. He said a lot of these guys, they've had off for about a week and a half now. So he wants them to get their legs back. He wants them to get their breath back, as he said, and just get back up into the the conditioning they're going to need him at. But the interesting thing that I saw, Dan, I know that there were a lot of call-ups today. If you hadn't noticed, still the Rangers with Team USA, there were a bunch of Rangers on that team, and with JT Miller, Adam Fox, and Chris Kreider all still with Team USA, the Rangers made a few call-ups for the practice today, and the list of guys they brought up from Hartford, which, by the way, Hartford has a game tonight too, so I kind of feel bad, even though the Wolfpack aren't having a great year overall anyway, and it's really just a development league anyway. It kind of screws the rest of the regulars on the team, but hey, this team is here at the behest of the New York Rangers, so sometimes these situations are going to happen. So all these guys came up from Hartford. Hartford had to make a bunch of call-ups from their minor league, the ECHL, the other league that's affiliated with the NHL. And so they'll be straightening that out tonight. But I wanted to bring up the guys they brought up because I thought this collection of players was very interesting. So obviously, you see Dylan Garand there at the bottom. He's the goaltender that when Igor got banged up at the end last year, right before the break, Dylan Garand stepped in as the backup for the last game and has been here with the team ever since. Brett Berard, who was with the Rangers earlier this year, Brennan Othman, who's gotten in a couple of games over the last year, and Jake Lecision, all three forwards coming up, along with defenseman Matthew Robertson joining Dylan Garand at the NHL level. Now, a couple of reasons I brought this in. Now, obviously, Brett Berard and Brennan Othman are guys that the Rangers obviously see a lot of upside in. These guys are having good, and especially Brennan Othman has been really hot in the AHL lately. Brett Brett Berard has gone down there and been good ever since the Rangers sent him back down. So those are two guys the Rangers wanted to bring back up and get back in the NHL flow of things. Jake Leschyshyn's an interesting choice because he's not really a prospect. He's kind of a guy that bounces back and forth between the AHL and the NHL, kind of like a quadruple A kind of guy, as they say in baseball. And, so I guess just to fill out the roster, he was there too. And Matthew Robertson, too, another guy the Rangers see a good amount in. He's a left-handed shot defenseman that the Rangers are going to need too, especially if they part ways with any number of guys. Now, Dan, too, I just want to bring this up too because you look at this list of guys, and then there's another list of guys that the Rangers are going to be getting rid of too. You have to remember that there's a good chance the Rangers move on from Ryan Lindgren. There's a good chance the Rangers move on from from a couple of these older forwards that the Rangers have too. So, Dan, when you look at this, how do you think this is going to play into when the Rangers get back now? Do you think any of these guys have a chance of sticking around?
I don't know. That depends on who's ready. Maybe, especially depending if everyone comes back for the Four Nations unscathed, because we are aware this was just a move for just because they needed enough players to warm up with the rest of the guys because they're holding us practice while some of our guys are away for Four Nations. So this kind of seems like maybe more of a move just for those warm ups, but we're probably gonna see over time. I see Lindgren probably most likely to be traded of all the guys currently on the roster, depending what they can get back in return. I feel like,
and you know who else I've been hearing more momentum pick up with too recently is forward Riley Smith, and I feel like the Rangers probably think that if Brandon Othman is playing really good right now, Riley Smith has been okay. He hasn't been great, but if it might be able to save them, like it all depends what Chris Drury has in mind for what he wants to do at the trade deadline, because the Rangers are going to have about 15 or $16 million, and in hockey, that's a lot of money to work with at the deadline if they want to pick somebody up. If you include Riley Smith and Lindgren in that, Riley Smith is worth 3.7 and Lindgren is over 4. So right over there, between those two guys, you're saving yourself $7 million right there. And if you even look at it further, that means the Rangers could get up to 22 or at least 20 plus $million at the deadline. That gives them the ability to do really anything they want. And the interesting thing too, Dan, and I know they're not going to trade them here, but another thing you have to keep in mind is that the Carolina Hurricanes traded for Mikko Rantanen from the Colorado Avalanche. Just a couple of months ago, me and you discussed it. We talked about how we weren't too thrilled that they picked him up. Well, things aren't going too swimmingly for Mikko Rantanen there, and he's a free agent at the end of the year, which, by the way, I wasn't aware of. I thought he was under contract long term. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So from what I heard, the rumblings are the Rangers really, and let's not forget, he's a right wing that the Rangers haven't had a good right wing in years. And, probably since Jaromir Jagr was the last time the Rangers had a really great right wing. And Mikko Rantanen is 28 years old. He's coming off a $9 million salary, and this is a guy that scored 50-plus goals and 100 points just 2 years ago. So it looks like things aren't really working in Carolina, whether he's not happy there or they're not happy to have him. They might flip him again, but the Rangers want to make sure that they have cap space to go after this guy in the offseason because, me and you wanted Jake Gunsel last year. Me and you wanted a bunch of guys, maybe even trading for Tavares or any of those options. None of it happened, but it looks like the Rangers have their eye on a guy that me and you definitely would want in Mikko Rantanen coming off this season.
Oh man, I would love that. That would be big. I feel like that could propel us to just a big season that turned out to be a lot better than we expected. Like, I don't want to say the words, but I feel like those words I'm not going to say. could actually end up surprisingly happen.
Yeah,
If it's
man.
like if
But
a
let's not get carried away too, because let's not forget Carolina's probably not going to trade him to the Rangers. And
yeah
if they do trade him to the Rangers, we're going to have to give up a lot for it. Talking multiple first round picks. So the
yeah
smartest thing to do for the Rangers might be just getting rid of a guy like Lindgren, getting rid of a couple other guys that might stand in the way. Make sure you got plenty of room to work with in the offseason, and then just throw a big contract like you did at Artemi Panarin, all those years ago, and just make sure that there's no way he can tell you no. Because what they're saying
yeah
right now is that he's making $9 million this year. He could be in line to make $13 million next year. Let's not forget, Panarin is the highest paid Ranger right now, and he makes 11.6. So it's big money for the NHL at least.
yeah exactly. And that, but I know they're gonna. I just know the Rangers are gonna pull off something pretty big in this trade deadline. I have a feeling they're just
Who do
gonna
you have?
be.
So let's just say if it's not going to be Miko because he's in Carolina, and I doubt they're going to do anything to help the Rangers. Who do you have your eye on at the trade deadline that you think is a realistic get for the Rangers?
Uh, uh, this one's kind of a trick one. I don't know if Pittsburgh falls out of it. Maybe Malkin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Pittsburgh. I've heard people even kick around Sidney Crosby. I doubt that would happen too, but hey, I would love to get my hands on Sidney Crosby. There's a couple other guys too that I would love to see. I heard Boston might be interesting in moving one of their centers. I would love to get that Frederick. I think his name's Trey Frederick. Their center over there. I would love to get that guy and stick him on the third line, and then that way you can lock in Mika Zibanejad at right wing on the top line. You obviously have your second line locked in with whichever way you really want to go, Trocheck, Panarin, and Lafreniere, and then that third line you get centered by that kid Frederick from Boston. Maybe you keep Riley Smith and stick him on that line too, or maybe you move him out and you bring up a guy like Brendan Hoffman to play with him. I mean, anything like that, I would definitely be behind.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be behind that Frederick. That would just be a big one. Like I just have a feeling like I said, I'm not gonna say the words, but what I'm saying could potentially happen is you could see the beard reach the my beard reach the final stage finally. That's all I gotta say. My playoff beard will reach the final stage, which hasn't done in a while.
Exactly, man. And one last thing, just to wrap up here on the hockey, is Igor Shesterkin looks like he's trending in the right direction. Obviously, he got banged up right before the break. He only played half of practice today, as Laviolette said that they're easing him back in. Dylan Garand, who's had a very good year for the AHL Wolfpack, played the other half of practice. Like we said, it was about 50 minutes, so about 25 to 30 minutes was Igor, and the rest was Dylan Garand. So hey, I got no problem with that. I'm glad they said that Igor looks good, and hey, they're just easing him in. So maybe they got one more practice between now and Saturday, and then ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Igor is gonna be back. We'll have Igor and Quick back to back. One of the greatest 1-2 punch. There is such an epic 1-2 punch right there we have in the NHL of Igor and Quick.
Yeah, it's true,
And
man.
maybe if a circumstance reaches where I keep hinting about, maybe I'll get a little easier to pain it without thinking of associating Jonathan Quick with a very painful memory. Let's put it this way.
Exactly. Much like when what's his name? Much like when Bill Buckner returned to Fenway Park in 2005 after the Red Sox had won the World Series. It'll be like Jonathan Quick, who everybody's accepted. No doubt about it, we've accepted him, but I don't know if we've fully forgiven him until we get that ring.
Yeah, exactly, because he freaking beat us in that cup final still. I haven't forgotten that.
Exactly. So shout out to our two goalies. Let's hope Igor is feeling better. And on that note, let's talk about some injury updates for the other team that calls Madison Square Garden home. And because really that's the only thing we got right now. So in my opinion, before we get into all the injury updates, that's basically what we got today from Tom Thibodeau. Uh, for me, this NBA All Star, if you rank the All Star games in the league, for the four leagues, I feel like baseball is the best, which it's always been the best, but even though it's not as good now as it used to be, it's still the best. So you put baseball one, and then I always felt like it was a really close number two between hockey and basketball, but I felt like basketball beat it out because of the intrigue of the slam dunk contest and stuff like that people would get into. But I feel like nobody cares, and rightfully so, about the NBA All-Star Weekend anymore. And as the NHL saw, maybe just get rid of your All-Star premise and start doing the Four Nations every year, because that's much more interesting. So, Dan, what did you think of the All-Star Weekend?
Yeah, I didn't really think much. I don't really have the same enthusiasm for it as maybe back in the day during the peak NBA days. Like I just showed my sister this highlight film from the NBA during the 90s, and it was like she just realized that how lucky I was, because I mean there's a huge geek. I mean I was born in 82, right? My sister was born in 95, so put it there. You could figure it out there, the age gap between me and my sister. But she just realized how lucky I was to get to see so much of the peak NBA during that time. Like it felt like every team was stacked back then. Remember those days?
Yeah, it's true. And
And I guess it felt like every year the Knicks were going to win it, and we kept getting roadblocked by the fucking Bulls.
yeah, and you'd look at the rosters across the NBA, and you'd be like, man, how did that guy not make the All Star game? How did that guy not make the All Star game? Now you look at it, and it's like, where they have the rule where each guy has to, each team has to have a representative, and there are some teams you look at these rosters, and you're like, these guys don't have an All Star on this team at all. It's like the complete opposite that it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'll still pop in my Genesis. I'll pull up my Sega Genesis and I'm playing NBA Jam, and it's like that game will just take me back to just a stacked. That's when I realized playing that video game alone makes me realize how stacked the NBA was back then.
Yeah, and you can even look, like you said, you look at the roster, man, and you could go to the worst team in the league, back at the NBA Jam from the '90s, and you could still find a good player worthy of being on the All Star team right now. You look at the Washington Wizards right now, who that maybe even though I know they have maybe Cunningham, one good guy on Detroit. What about the Detroit Pistons? How many of these guys are worthy of being in the All Star game? These are trash teams that have no business with anybody near the All Star game.
Yeah, I I I actually recorded the All Star game because they freaking mess it up, the scheduling with the All Star game scheduling on the same day as the Daytona 500, and sometimes because the Daytona National Speedway has lights, the race might run long, because of a rain delay or something, right? Which was what happened. I recorded it. I ended up watching that. I think when I got back home from work, I watched the NBA All Star game and I watched the 50th anniversary special of the SNL 50th anniversary special back to back because of that DVR. And I says, "Man, I just can't believe I set my DVR to record this." when I'm watching it turned into an episode of Cheap Seats when I was watching the NBA All Star Game. It's best if you were in the same room when I was watching it. It felt like I was in an episode of Cheap Seats. The best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's a shame what they've done to it, and even the slam dunk contest. The slam dunk contest. I along with everybody else used to love that, and it just doesn't have that oomph anymore for some reason, whatever it is. But yeah, just to like we talked about the Knicks giving the update on a whole bunch of injuries. So one of the interesting things that came out today now is that Josh Hart is going to be out tomorrow and possibly Friday, as he's dealing with a knee issue. It doesn't sound serious. They didn't really, ring the bell or anything or said that it's going to be too crazy. But, it's a little concerning to me that Josh Hart's knee is such an issue that even with having a week plus off right now, he's still going to need an extra couple of days. And, look, as much as I would want him to be back tomorrow against Chicago, and they're playing a back to back, let's not forget. So they're also playing Friday against Cleveland. As long as he's back for Sunday when they play the Boston Celtics, that's all I care about.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as he's back for that game, hopefully just rest it up. Knicks will hopefully take care of what they need to do these back-to-back games and be ready. Also, I saw a unique thing on Twitter. I don't know. Remember, did you see me when I retweeted this tweet from Jalen Brunson when he said he seems to want to try to hint that he wants to organize a Knicks Twitter basketball game somewhere at some court somewhere in the city?
I did see something about that. You're right.
Yeah. You saw when I reposted it with the comment that says, "Hey, if you're gonna do this, count me." I mentioned you, and I mentioned Isai Dave, and we're three of us are game to take. If you're gonna do this, we will.
If they're going to do that, well, Dave might want to play. I suck at basketball, so if you want, how about this? Those guys could play. Eastside Dave could play, and me and you will be the play-by-play guys.
Yeah, that might be though. No, my sister, she might try to prompt me to take part. I know my sister, and believe me, I think my sister she'd probably play in that game because my sister played basketball in elementary school and middle school, so she'd probably be game for it.
Of course, no doubt about it. All right, so also too, just another update there on the injury front. Me and you've been spending a lot of time the last few weeks talking about Mitchell Robinson. Will he or won't he? Is he going to show up? Is he going to miss the whole year? Well, a good update from Thibodeau is that Mitchell Robinson, who's been dealing with the foot injury, is progressing. Said he looks good. He was out there running. He was practicing with the guys. I don't know if they still didn't say he's cleared for contact yet, but they officially have him listed as questionable tomorrow, which I found interesting because they did do that right before the All-Star break too, and then just, really didn't say anything about it. He didn't play that game. That was it. But prior to that, he was never even listed as questionable. He was always out, and basically his name wasn't even mentioned. Now they have him actually listed as questionable for tomorrow. And, it's just interesting that this is something to, to keep your eye on because Mitchell Robinson could play a big role, especially if he ends up, lightening the load on Karl Anthony Towns a little bit,
Yeah, exactly. I welcome that if he could return. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. I'll be surprised. I'll be like that video. Remember that video with that guy with that Boston accent when he caught that ginormous fish? We'd be like, "Holy shit!" That literally will be my reaction, only with a Western Queens accent. If I saw the news that Mitchell Robinson actually suits up for the Knicks, I will have that reaction if that happens.
Yeah, man. So it's going to be interesting. The guy got hurt late last year. Haven't seen him in about almost a full calendar year at this point. So going to be real interesting to see what he can provide for this team. And then lastly, before we turn the page and head over to some spring training talk, OG Anunoby, who suffered the injury. And that's the one thing with OG. He is injury prone. However, he is listed as questionable for tomorrow versus Chicago. They're saying he's trending in the right direction as well. And they're saying even if he doesn't play the first game back, he'll definitely be back for Friday. So it looks like at some point in the next game or two, they're going to get OG back. And look, the Knicks have a pretty good team, but the one thing that we've said is that they're very thin. They're a very, very talented team. They're probably one. If I was going to say right now, I would probably list the Knicks as one of the 5 or 6 most talented teams in the NBA. However, the one thing that could catch up with them at some point is their lack of depth. Really beyond maybe 6 or 7. It doesn't go much more than that. I mean, once you start getting into Precious Achua, who's not bad, but you want to at least have one more go-to option before that. And you get to those other guys in the end of the bench. But getting OG back when he got hurt, you knew the Knicks were gonna have to tap into that depth, and OG coming back is only gonna help that out now.
Yeah, exactly. That's just gonna be extra big when he comes back. I can tell you, I'm pumped for this stretch run of the season. It's
Yeah, man.
it's gonna be nerve wracking and gonna be me yelling at the TV.
Yeah, exactly. And less than 2 months left in the regular season, and then we'll be
Yeah,
right back in the playoffs.
exactly. And I also got to say one thing about this, a little side note of some news I got on Twitter. Did you hear this? That when the TV deal with the NFL with CBS and Fox's contract are up, probably Netflix is trying to bid for the next contract, which would be for the like for the local games, Sunday afternoon, which would be a problem because I pretty much, if you saw, did you see what I posted on Twitter? He says breaking
Nope.
news. I said breaking news. Prepare to have to explain to your senior citizen relatives how to use Netflix to watch to access their favorite team, or explain to your senior citizen relatives why they don't have access to the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I heard about that earlier today, and I'm not a fan of it either. I'm not a fan of Netflix at all. I actually, I'm a WWE fan, so I've been very, very disappointed in Monday Night Raw since it's gone to Netflix. I think they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit since then. So, not that I think it's going to affect the NFL broadcast that much, but it's just annoying. I'm so sick of Netflix, and the fact that they're trying to get in on the NFL now is just even more annoying. Leave the NFL on regular TV.
Yeah, exactly. And they better not be, if they do that, they better not be in a Super Bowl rotation. It's like I tell you, because the last thing they need to do is for them to mess up the economy, because you know how much money people make for Super Bowl parties at supermarkets, and how many less people are going to be doing Super Bowl parties if they don't have access to the game.
Well, all you gotta do is get Netflix, and you can still do it.
But there's going to be people that aren't going to pay for Netflix for just one game.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. There's the people that don't normally have Netflix, so I really think it's a bad move. Plus the fact that the bars are going to charge an arm and a leg to watch the Super Bowl. I know if Netflix joins the Super Bowl the network rotation, because like from what I gather, sometimes with these events like to watch WWE at a bar, because Netflix wants money, the bar will like make you like charge $10 at those entry fees, like they do with pay-per-views.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, who knows, man? Let's hope. But they're talking about that's going to be in 2029, and let's just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Plus that I don't want to worry about lag watching a Giants game, and I had to deal with lag.
to be fair, since Raw has been on Netflix, there really hasn't been too much lag.
Yeah,
But
because I remember during that boxing match that was on that Tyson
that
Jake
is
Paul.
true.
There,
Yeah.
there was a
Tyson,
lot
Jake
like
Paul. You're right.
I don't know how there wasn't lag on my end. I don't know what happened, but I heard a lot of people complain about the lag.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I saw the lag on that one. You're right. All right, now let's jump over to some spring training baseball, Dan. As Mets and Yankees spring training are underway, they're getting ready for their Grapefruit League schedules to open up. Yankees start up on Friday. Mets kick things off on Saturday. And real quick, since we only got one Yankee point, really, I was desperately trying to compile a list of things to talk about with the Yankees, but there really just isn't too much going on right now. The only thing is that I did find interesting is that Marcus Stroman really ruffled some feathers, is the way I put it, but he really pissed a lot of people off with he didn't show up late to camp, but he didn't report to camp until as late as he possibly could without getting in trouble. That made a lot of Yankee fans upset, and understandably so. I'd be annoyed too. You want to see guys down there. You want to see guys that are just brimming with excitement, ready to go. And Marcus Stroman has apparently already turned Yankee fans against him.
And
And now it's the start of the grape. Now he gets slated to be the opening day for the Grapefruit League, so he'll be the first starter the Yankees throw out there on Friday. And I just got to say, this doesn't surprise me. Marcus Stroman wears out his welcome everywhere he goes.
yeah, exactly. This is the thing. I warned the Yankee fans about this when he signed with the Yankees. I said, prepare for this bullshit because we dealt with it when he was with us, and I just be warned and be warned how he handles with the fans on social media because I feel like he blocked 90% of the Met fans on social media. So
Yeah,
don't be surprised if he does that to you guys.
yeah, you're right, man. Because this guy, and look, it's funny too because guys like me and you, we wanted to root for Marcus Stroman. I saw Marcus Stroman in Toronto, and obviously you did too, as avid baseball fans as we are. We knew what kind of pitcher he was. He was a pretty damn good pitcher. He pitched well for Team USA back in 2017 as well at the World Baseball Classic. Marcus Stroman had compiled a pretty decent track record. And when the Mets traded for him back there in the summer of 2019 under Brodie Van Wagenen, I was pretty excited for it. I was happy the Mets brought him in. I thought he rounded out the rotation pretty well. A guy from Long Island coming back to New York to play for the Mets. Everything about it just made sense. But then, this guy just gets his baggage. He can't shut his mouth on the internet. Every time you turn around, he's getting into something else. He gets disrespectful, and then all he does is play the race card every chance he gets too. So, Dan, what do you think about this guy?
He's nuts. And then he walked out on us in 2020. Remember that? He opted out of the season in 2020 when we were kind of straight for pitching.
Yeah, yeah, he
In,
did.
in 2020, and it was just costed us. And he kind of even when he returned back in 2021, kind of I really feel like he didn't bring the same momentum. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And he just, he's a guy that is just not. The way I look at Marcus Stroman is that he's just not a guy that's all in. And when you are building a team, you want a guy like Francisco Lindor that's all in. You want a guy like Pete Alonso that's all in. You don't want this Marcus Stroman clown that makes everything about himself. It's always a sideshow. And as talented as a pitcher as he might be, nobody gets in Marcus Stroman's way more than Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, exactly. It's for course. I said, good luck with that, Yankee fans, with that headache. Because I don't say I didn't warn you guys.
You're right, man. You're right. So, all right, now we're done with the Yankees. There's a couple of things with the Mets as we round this thing out. I do want to get to you, Dan. So, the first thing I did want to get to, obviously, there have been a lot of stuff we've got into. The Frankie Montas injury. You see us, me and you broke that down on our Patreon show this past Sunday. So if you guys are interested, don't forget to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. We do a couple of shows there. Well, we do one show every week, but there's always bonus content too. But Dan, a couple of interesting things coming out from this weekend. So Steve Cohen had a sit-down interview with Howie Rose that was posted on the Mets social media and everything. And then he had another sit-down interview with a whole bunch of reporters in the Mets dugout. And Steve Cohen actually called out Mets fans. And now that's an interesting way of putting it. I put it that way for a reason because he did. Steve Cohen legitimately called out Mets fans. Now, he expressed his disappointment in the fact that when the Mets got on a roll and got hot late last season, that they still overall were 18th in the league in attendance last year. And he was also talking about how a game against the Nationals right before the game against the Phillies or the series against the Phillies, that there was like 18,000 people in the stands and everything. And he was talking about how he hopes that the people come back to Citi Field this year. Now, there's a couple of issues that I wanted to take with that. First off, as annoyed as I could be, I also understand it from Steve Cohen's perspective. Look, you want the guys to come. You want the stadium filled up, no doubt about it. But what I'll say to him is, Dan, a year ago at this time, me and you were as angry at the Mets as we've ever been in our lives, for the construction of the roster and everything else that went into it and the lack of money they spent coming into last year. Now, obviously, everything kind of worked out. The Mets dug their way out of a hole, but the fact that they were in an 11-game under 500 hole in the first place kind of shows that maybe we weren't that off to begin with. But what I'll say, though, is what Steve Cohen, I don't think, understood was that last year's, not only the fact that people were pissed off what they did in the offseason, 2023 ticket sales, and Dan, I don't know, you have a big shadow across your face right now. I don't know if you can move whatever's in front of your face. There you go. But the 2024 ticket sales reflect what the Mets did in the 2023 season. And, all they did in the 2023 season was shit the bed, trade a bunch of their great players, and not make the playoffs, and then fire a manager everybody loved. So you're going to expect a bump in attendance after that? You know what I mean? Like, you didn't spend any money last offseason. You didn't get Yamamoto. You didn't get Shohei Ohtani. So we had nothing to be excited about. I'm sorry. A year ago at this time, nobody cared the Mets signed Jose Iglesias. A year ago at this time, the Mets didn't even have JD Martinez yet. Like, they were still a month away from getting JD Martinez. And not to mention, if you fast forward with all of that to mid-August of last year, nobody thought the Mets were going to make the playoffs. The odds were way in the favor of the Mets not making the playoffs again. So I don't understand. Like, I understand why he wants people to come out. And I don't want this to be Steve Cohen, fuck him. I don't want this to be that at all. But I want to be like, what did he expect? Of 18th after what they did in the offseason and what they did in 2023? It's not as bad as you'd expect,
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think some people maybe didn't think anything, so maybe they made other plans or something those days because of how far in advance they didn't think it was going to be. They didn't think it was going to turn out how it did, but at the same time, I do kind of agree, maybe part of what Cohen said, because I feel like there should have been enough people to show up when they realized the Mets were in the thick of a playoff race in the stretch run, show up. And at least I did my duty as a Mets fan when they were in the thick of playoff race. I knew the assignment at that time, September, that stretch run. I knew that was a point. Make a presence known and show up. Show up and I think they didn't finally do something, I think, until Nimmo said something. And remember, like, the last week of the season, Nimmo said something, fans show up, and that's when they were finally showing up.
Yeah. Hey, last season, the 2024 season, was the first year in my life outside of that shitty 2020 fake season. The only season of my life that I didn't go to a game. That as far back as I can remember. Maybe I didn't go to a game when I was like 3, but I don't remember it. It's been my entire life, and I didn't go to a game last year because I said I was mad. I was mad at the beginning of last season, and I said I am not going to a game all season. Now, I'm sorry, Steve, if you don't like that, but that's because of what you did in the offseason and how bad of a 2023 you had. Now, look, the Mets made the commitment. Steve Cohen went out there and made the commitment. He brought back Pete Alonso, which was an olive branch to the fans in itself. And he spent the money for Juan Soto. And not only that, we got a couple other guys like AJ Minter, too, you can be happy about. So, look, Steve, you did what we needed you to do. And I guarantee I'm going to be back at Citi Field next year. I will return to Citi Field in 2025. like I always do, I love going to Met games. I only did it last year because I was really pissed at you guys. And I'm
Yep.
sorry, just because we got hot in the second half of the season, I wasn't going to change my position.
Exactly. And I gotta tell you, he'll definitely be showing up. Hopefully this time I won't be seen on camera spilling beer after, like, let's say Pete Alonso hits a home run and I spill a beer. Like, I will never forget that game. Remember that game, that footage of us, we showed up on it was a nationally broadcasted game on ESPN, and I remember like Daniel Murphy hit a
Yes.
home run, and there was footage of me going nuts and almost spilling part of my beer. Like
Yes, I gotta find that on because I have the clip of that. It's me. In case you're wondering, it was actually Sunday Night Baseball 2015 Mets Nationals, and it was the Sunday after the Mets acquired Yoenis Cespedes, and myself, Dan, and my uncle and cousin went to this game, and they hit the it was 3 straight home runs. I think Lucas Duda, Daniel Murphy, and somebody else, I forget who, hit 3 home runs in an inning off Jordan Zimmerman. And we ended up on TV. And not only did we end up on TV, but in the documentary they made of the 2015 season, you could see us in it. I used to have the clip of it. I got to find it somewhere, but it's awesome though when you actually see it.
Yeah. We were part of that documentary in the 2015 season because that has been. Hopefully, this won't happen. This won't happen this time. I think even one of my friends in Boston is hoping we make the trip to Boston in May, which we probably are going to make that trip in May. He says, I hope you're not going to accidentally spill beer if the Mets do something. because
Yeah, man.
that person saw that footage of me spilling beer on TV. I remember my aunt texted me the next day that she said, "I saw you spill beer during the game." Because when I wrote the photo, he was a Mets fan. She was watching the game and she said, "I saw you spill beer."
Oh yeah, we were going nuts in that game. We were going nuts, man. And yeah, so also too, a couple of other things with this now. We were talking about Marcus Stroman getting the first spring game for the Yankees. Well, our manager Carlos Mendoza announced today who our starter for the Mets is going to be to kick off the spring, and it's going to be Clay Holmes. Which, if you think about it, it makes the most sense because this is a guy that you're going to be most concerned about stretching out and getting ready for spring training. So hey, it looks like you know you give Clay Holmes the most opportunities to get ready for opening day as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also interested in seeing how some of our prospects are progressing, including some pitching prospect, which is badly a thing that the Mets they need pitching in a Brendan Stout and of course Zach Scott, hopefully eventually returning.
Yeah,
Hopefully
actually,
eventually returning.
you, speaking of that too, Dan, me and you were talking about um is it Zach Scott is his name? Or
I
I think it
forget
was
his
something
name.
else.
I forget.
No,
I think I
Christian
got it.
Scott. Yeah, it was
It was
Christian
Christian
Scott.
Scott. I don't know. I
So,
mixed up the name because he just
no, it's
showed up
okay.
and then all of a sudden after just a couple of days he had like Tommy John surgery all of a sudden and it was like
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. Me and you were talking about him as an option this year, and Christian Scott is not an option this year. Christian Scott will not be pitching at any level this year. He had Tommy John surgery late last year. So, me and you were doing our spring training preview a week or two ago, talking about guys that we're looking forward to seeing. And we both mentioned Christian Scott. And then I realized afterwards, I'm like, holy crap, Christian Scott had Tommy John surgery. We're not even going to see him until 2026 now.
yeah, exactly. So but I'm definitely eager to see how Brendan Snout is progressing, who I feel like is going to play a big factor this year. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know what the Mets' plan for him is to get him in spring. I'm sure he'll be because he's a minor league player. I'm sure he'll be there early. But like we were mentioning too, the Frankie Montas injury, which if you're not familiar with, because it just happened the other day, Frankie Montas has a lat injury that puts him out. Now, the Mets initially said he was going to be down for 6 to 8 weeks. He said today that he's going to be down for 4 to 6 weeks. But either way, that just means that it's either 6 to 8 or 4 to 6 weeks. until he picks up a baseball again and can actually do baseball activities, which means that whenever that is, let's just say 6 weeks. So that'll put us at right around April 1st. That's when his spring training will start. So at the absolute earliest, you are not expected to see Frankie Montas until at least mid-May. And to be honest, me and you talked about it the other day, Dan. I wouldn't expect to see him until the All-Star break.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like that's gonna happen. Also, it's gonna be a big eye on Kodai Singer, and
Yeah,
hopefully he returns. And I expect hopefully he'll return fine this time. He's not rushed. He wasn't rushed like we saw him in the playoffs. Like you could tell that he just looked like he wasn't rushed into this whole thing. Says
yeah.
I just felt that during the playoffs that this guy was rushed into it. And he says, "This is a good idea, bringing him in. This looks like rushed into this, but well, hopefully he'll get a better chance to get more ease into it to be ready for the season come opening day." Also, a big thing that I feel like if not right now, I feel like if the Mets are right there in the thick of this race during the trade deadline, we have so many shortstops, so many catchers in our up in the pipeline that we might as well trade that surplus for some pitching help and bring in Dylan Cease.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's going to take it goes against, even though I agree with you, and if it goes against David Stern's philosophy to give up major prospects for a guy in the walk year of his deal. I'm with you. I would take it, depending on the
Yeah,
prospects.
yeah,
I wouldn't really want to give up a Jet Williams in that, but
yeah,
I'd be willing to talk about it. The only thing is though, Dan, there are other options too, because you and I don't think especially he's going to be parting with those prospects for a guy like Dylan Cease at the trade deadline. Maybe now we get a full year to be a little bit more acceptable. But the one other thing too, there's been a guy that just surfaced. Uh, he put out feelers, I heard, from the Mets, and Jose Quintana has resurfaced. Let's not forget, Jose Quintana was a Met obviously the last couple of years, but he's still a free agent. He hasn't signed with anybody yet. And apparently, I heard through MLB reporter Pat Ragazzo that Jose Quintana expressed a deep desire to return to the Mets. You know, it seems a lot like, how Jose Iglesias is holding out hope that the Mets bring him back too. Um, it seems like Jose Quintana wants that too. Dan, if you're the Mets right now, that seems like something they probably should consider, right?
I feel like maybe this one they should consider. Maybe bring him in maybe as a stopgap because I feel like we're gonna have to trade for some pitching at the trade deadline. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
given. All right, right. We have a surplus. We have a log jam at two positions. I feel like, as I said, too many catchers, too many shortstops in the minors that might as well trade some of that surplus for something that we need. I feel like I feel like we're gonna see that at the trade deadline. We're gonna trade for I feel like ace level pitching because we have that a surplus there. The other thing I feel like is that Jose Quintana is going to be probably going to be brought back, right. And if they're going to make a decision, make that decision right now. This way he's ready to go opening day. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
gonna be that's gonna be another key one. I feel like during the season because I really do not trust Tyler McGill these days.
No, I
And
don't want to see Tyler McGill. I don't want to see the guy they brought in from the Angels. I don't want to see any of these borderline guys that, look, that would be like if the '98 Yankees or the late '90s Yankees were relying on garbage to get by in the 4 and 5 spots in their rotation. Let's not forget. Remember how deep those teams' rotations were. Remember how deep the Atlanta Braves rotations were.
yeah,
You need good pitching to win, and the Mets might have a very good lineup, but they're certainly not the Dodgers. The Dodgers have the best lineup in baseball, and you're going to need good pitching to beat those guys. And look, I agree with you. The Mets are going to need to part with probably some of those prospects to bring in an ace somewhere down the line. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to happen this year. it's really going to depend on the trade market and how it unfolds and who's going to be out there. And if David Stearns is comfortable with moving a prospect to get to that, which is why Jose Quintana is such a good option, because you don't have to give up any prospects for him. You just got to give up probably $12 million.
Yeah, exactly. Not bad, but like I said, David Stearns is gonna have to do something this time. I feel like, unlike last time, he's got because I'm
But
because
that's easier said than done, though, Dan.
I
If you're in David Stern's shoes right now, who are you going to trade for? It's easier said than
well, well,
done.
well,
You could say Dylan
right,
Cease. You could say
well,
Dylan
right,
Cease, but what if they're asking for your top guys?
yeah, well, right now, maybe the circumstance might good. I feel like that's gonna play out when it gets closer to the second half. I feel like,
Yeah, well, Dan, because I'm telling you right now, if I'm the Padres GM and the Mets want to make a trade, I'm saying, oh, okay, you want Dylan Cease? I want Jet Williams, I want Drew Gilbert, and I want who's the other guy I was just gonna say? Uh, one other top prospect, Brandon Sproat. Are you willing to do that? Because that's a lot to give up
uh,
for a guy on a rental.
I wouldn't. I don't. I can't really say giving up a pitching prospect on a rental. That's the thing. I could see
They're gonna
maybe.
want a pitcher back. They're gonna
Yeah,
if they're trading Dylan Cease, they're gonna want a pitcher back.
yeah. That's the issue there. So maybe you might have to go another route depending how it plays out. There could. I feel like at the trade deadline there could be a player that's going to have another year or two on their contract. I feel like.
See, that's the thing, Dan, too. And obviously, me and you don't know the contracts yet until certain guys come into fruition, and when we could see it, the certain guys that are going to be targeted. But you're right, that is 100% in David Stern's wheelhouse. That's a guy. If they could find a guy that's controllable and is under contract for a couple of years, then no doubt about it, I would definitely feel like David Stearns would be much more inclined to move top prospects for that guy rather than a guy that's in a walk year of his deal like Cease.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, another thing, if I want to look a few years down the line, and this is going to be a few years down the line, and who knows if David Stearns will be the GM then, but I have a weird one of my friends just has one of my Twitter peeps. I don't know, like when someone my mom knows in the Pittsburgh area, one of her Twitter peeps has an inkling that Polsky is probably going to sign a big deal with the Mets after that, because that's going to be you know how Steve Cohen is with that generational talent. Like when we went with Juan Soto, that's going to be one that Steve Cohen's going to be is going to intervene on that one, because it's going to be too good to pass up.
Well, let's not get too carried away though, because you know how these pitchers are, man. It could be just like this sounds like a Yankee fan in 2012 talking about signing Matt Hardy. Like I'm thinking wrestling. Matt Harvey, when he becomes a free agent. You know what I mean? So, these pitchers, they get hurt and that's the end. So who knows if Paul Skeens is even going to be that elite pitcher when he reaches free agency.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I gotta give credit on Skeeves is that I don't think he has a Scott Boras where he's under Scott Boras and has that Scott Boras ego.
I don't know about that. If he continues to be the best pitcher in baseball, I guarantee Scott Boras is getting involved at some point.
Yeah, I know that's the scary part. That old guy that I just felt like Harvey was a great pitcher, and I know he made some mistakes during his career, and I apologize for those mistakes. I forgive him for those mistakes, but he kind of had that Scott Boras ego because he thought he was going to get the big contract that had Morris, but didn't turn out that well. And that one just makes me sad that it didn't turn out that well. And the one that photo of that rotation that turned out well is not on our team anymore. That really cringes me that happened.
That's true, man.
And I think, and I I will stand by this statement. If Steve Cohen was owner of the Mets back then, Zach Wheeler would still be a Met, I think.
Well, 100%. All right, one last thing before we get out of here, Dan. Just because we're talking about it, we're done anyway. Last thing, food for thought. And I don't even know why it just popped in my head because me and you were talking about it, I guess. Matt Hardy. I keep saying that. I'm a big Hardy Boys fan all of a sudden. Matt and Jeff Hardy. No, Matt Harvey. Would you put him in the Mets Hall of Fame?
I feel like yeah, he just had some electric years for those couple of years he was at the Mets. I say he probably is definitely one that should be in the Hall of Fame. Another one, if I want to look down the line in the Mets Hall of Fame, I'd say I say Jose Reyes is another one.
Well,
And if
Jose
you want
Reyes is a slam dunk, obviously, but
yeah,
but Matt Harvey is really, you have to think about it, because the guy didn't really last too long. He had a couple of good years here, and the other thing you can hang on him is that he started the All-Star game at Citi Field.
Yeah, yes, that could. So I feel like that one's borderline. Another one that I feel like could be, I could see in the Mets Hall of Fame down the line, Jacob deGrom, who had, and he just had some electric years during his Mets career, and
the guy, he won 2 Cy Youngs. He's definitely going in the Mets Hall of Fame. Even if it, but I still say I would not retire his number.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he's retired, but I know definitely he definitely has Mets Hall of Fame down the line.
Slam dunk, buddy.
And I even feel like for some reason I feel like Bartolo Colon could be potentially in the mix of that too.
I don't know. He wasn't really here long enough. I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think he's here long enough. But either way, Dan, that's a conversation for another day. We should do like a Mets Hall of Fame, something like that one day. We'll do maybe a bonus show, something like that. But Dan, before we get out of here, you have anything like to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Instagram Bobo718D. Bobo10, I mean my Twitter account Bobo103NYC, Instagram Bobo718DK, same username on Treads, YouTube, it's one word, Daniel Curlin. Whenever I upload YouTube stuff, you guys who subscribe to our Patreon, you get 2 weeks early access to it. So don't forget that. Also, you get access to stuff on our Patreon for only $5 a month. You get access to stuff like Tracks I Admitted, our Patreon exclusive shows we do on Sunday. So you get access to good stuff. Plus, you support the show. So you get a nice little deal for $5. It's not bad of a deal. So definitely subscribe to our Patreon.
That's right, and thank you so much to everybody that's already subscribed. Thank anybody to check it out. And by the way, we're going to be doing more live streams coming up soon. So we're also going to be throwing out some free, like a month free of Patreon here and there to some people. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll do a little raffle or something like that, so you can get a taste of what's on the other side of the wall. So keep your eyes out for that. I want to thank everybody that's already.
And I gotta say something. I feel like I have an inkling because of the green shakes. Let's do a McDonald's green shake gauntlet of 5 back-to-back shakes.
That's right. And all right, it's gonna do it for us, man. So before we get out of here, this is my co-host Daniel Bobo Curlin. I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, everybody, and we'll catch you next week. Go USA against Canada tomorrow. USA, 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 USA.